Welcome to Becoming is Messy, where we dive deep into the journey of survival, transformation, and everything in between. I'm your host, Meghann Dawson, here to share the honest, unfiltered stories behind my own process of becoming. Life isn't a pretty and perfect straight line, and neither is becoming the person we're meant to be. Here, we embrace the ups, the downs, all the beautiful, chaotic, messy moments that shape who we are. Whether you're in the thick of change or reflecting on past transformations, this space is for real conversations about what it means to grow, stumble, and rise again. So get comfy, settle in, and let's get messy. Today's guest is a magical blend of healing and heart. Crystal Robinson is a former engineering executive turned intuitive healer and board-certified wellness coach. After surviving a brain tumor, lupus, PTSD, and years in the high-stress corporate world, she now helps high-achieving women transform stress into clarity, illness into alignment, and burnout into a balanced life they love. Her story is a masterclass in mind, body, spirit wisdom, told with grace, grit, and real-life tools that you can use. Let's get messy with Crystal. Crystal, I am so excited to have you join Becoming is Messy today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much, Meghann, for having me on.
We are going to be digging into your background and the work that you're doing, but to just help us set the stage, give us a word or a phrase that captures your season of life right now and why.
A word or a phrase that captures the season of life I'm in. Freedom, alignment. That's where I am now. It, of course, wasn't where I was before, but definitely feel like I'm living the life I was meant to live now.
That's powerful. I'm just so excited now to get to our next question. So, thinking of where you're at today, every journey has some messiness to it. And so, walk us through a few of the twists and turns that have led you to this moment where you're living in freedom and in believing that you're doing what you're meant to do today. What were some of the twists and turns that got you here?
Lots of twists and turns. I would say a lot of things that popped up for me when I really started looking at these things as I came into alignment was going back and realizing I had sexual trauma, emotional abuse in my past. And then I had a lot of harassment, sexual harassment. I was a woman in an engineering career. I became a vice president. I did it for 34 years, but it really wasn't in alignment with what I wanted to do. And I felt like I was pushed based on parental and societal expectations to do something that I made money at, as opposed to going into a creative pursuit or something that I wanted to do. And what I realize now is I suppressed a lot of those things about myself. I was living for other people's expectations. And because of that, I dealt with a lot of medical issues from the time I was young, dealing with cysts and tumors, and then rashes unexplained, and then anaphylactic shock to things I had never had before. Now all of a sudden allergic to this and then allergic to that. And it kept compounding. And I had a lot of medical trauma based on that, not being able to breathe, my throat closing, a lot of those things. The medical trauma itself, then I was just super afraid to eat because I didn't know what was going to send me back to the hospital. So I dealt with a lot of that and figuring out how to listen to my body, how to eat properly, and not just eat for fear, which is what I was doing for a long time. I lost 65 pounds in 3 months because I was on my fear diet. And then when I felt like I finally had that controlled and I was still dealing with a toxic work environment, I was put in the onslaught of lupus, which took, I would say, 4 years for them to figure out. For the longest time, I just got questioned, oh, it's just stress. Oh, it's just this. And we can't see what's going on. And it took a long time for them to really diagnose that and figure that out. And then living in the wallow of that diagnosis and sitting in it and dealing with the pain, dealing with the medications, dealing with what the doctor said, dealing with a possible disability, like all of those things. And realizing that wasn't the way I wanted to live, pulling myself out of that, and really starting to connect like the mind, body, spirit mentality and holistic things as well as the Western medicine, like Eastern and Western medicine, mixing them together and learning that. And as I was coming through that, I got hit with a brain tumor
Wow.
out of nowhere, bigger than a golf ball. It was found because I was dealing with some headaches and in my face, which I thought I had a concussion from whacking my head. They realized this has to be taken out right away because you're having micro seizures. And realizing I had been living through all of these medical issues that were created in my body from dealing with all the stress and shoving it all down and not paying attention to all.
How do you think you started recognizing, because it had been your normal for so long, how do you think you started recognizing that connection, that maybe all of those medical things were being caused by the stress in your life and maybe there was something you could control to help improve that situation?
Yeah, so that's a great question because I'm actually writing about that now in
So
my book. I'm writing about all these little things that kind of were happening and how I was like evolving emotionally and mind wise, mentally. I was evolving and starting to really, talk to therapists, talk to people I was brought up with that wasn't okay. There was something wrong with you if you went to a therapist. So when I finally started doing that because of the medical trauma anxiety, I had started working through some of the other stuff and realizing what that was doing with the hormone levels in my body and how that was affecting things. It was really a long-term situation, but knowing the more I spoke my truth and the more I aligned with the things I really wanted, the happier and healthier I became. And it's not a switch. You can't just flip the switch. It's a process, like a 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I call it like I was doing the cha-cha of life. I was doing ballroom dancing for stress relief. I was amateur competitive ballroom dancer, and I loved it because it got my mind occupied and my body occupied. Then as soon as I came out of that, the mind drama starts again. The body stuff starts again. The environment that I was in was bothering me again. And that was like a catalyst in the right direction. Oh, see, when I'm aligned with where I want to be, things are better.
it sounds like maybe your mind was starting to catch up with what your body was essentially telling you.
Exactly. My body first started sending signals, and then it was like, hey, whacking me in the head, or you need to know this. And by the time the brain tumor came along, I was like, okay, I got it. You're screaming out.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to ask about another jump. You moved from this childhood and persistent medical problems to start noticing that maybe there was a shift that you could own to control it, to make some improvements. You also jumped from that science engineering background into becoming an intuitive healer. I'm curious, how did that more scientific brain and mindset start to make that shift?
So I think it's always been part of me.
Yes.
I blend the science and the woo,
Yep.
but it was always suppressed because then you were either crazy or you didn't know what you were talking about. It wasn't the science. So again, I was living under expectations of others. I was towing the line. I was in the tunnel and little things would pop up and I would just push it down. And it wasn't until I really had a lot of those life-changing things and had the brain tumor and was really like questioning
Yep.
everything and getting curious that my mediumship with
Yep.
people all the time.
Yep.
And I didn't tell people right away because I was like, everybody's gonna think I'm nuts. And it was really, I think, the catalyst of that brain tumor coming out that opened up my mind to other things, but as well as just me starting to do that mental, spiritual work and really connecting with myself, doing the meditation. I did regular meditations after having that being diagnosed with the lupus and started doing yoga and really connecting with myself spiritually on a different realm and realizing that I had all of this in me. that I've been helping people all my life when I could under a different umbrella.
Yes, yes.
And that my true purpose was to take my story, show my progression and my change, and teach other people how to do that.
Wow. So your mediumship, had you had any experiences like looking back now where that was trying to come through and maybe you weren't ready to acknowledge it?
Oh, yeah. Specifically when I was
Yeah.
younger. When I was young, I think back and I remember, "Oh, you're so creative. Oh, she said this," or, "Oh, look what Crystal's telling us now," like those things. And then when you're in the midst of having children and you're busy, you're a working mom, you're doing the family stuff, you're doing all the stuff, it's easy to suppress stuff like that because you're just constantly busy. Your brain is constantly thinking of other things, so it's very easy to just throw it off. For me, like all of these medical issues, my kids were growing up. By the time the brain tumor hit, the year my son was in high school, my daughter had just graduated. So my kids were almost adults and we had a lot happen. My stepmother passed away from a car accident with my dad in 2018. The brain tumor happened in 2019. The pandemic happened in 2020. And then I lost my dad unexpectedly in 21. And then right before that is when the mediumship blew up. So I also think it was the universe's way of preparing me for his death.
Yes.
Hey, this is in you all along and you need it now.
Yeah. So it's powerful. I'm curious then, once you did open up for it, you were in the midst of so much happening, so much additional trauma, grief. In the midst of that, as you started being more open to your own spiritual gifts, how then did that help you in particular with your healing journey? I'd love to eventually get to how you're helping others, but just curious how at first did that shift your life?
I realized that the more I tuned back into my true self,
Yes.
right? Into my heart, into my soul, into the energy that was me with a meditation, with connecting with spirit guides, diving into that, the healthier I was,
Yes.
the happier I was, the more fulfilled I was. And I was putting forth a different person when I was living that way. I wasn't the crazy stressed lady or the woman that was in engineering that had to deal with men all the time
Yeah.
because she had to prove herself all the time. My personality, I wouldn't say
Mhm.
changed. I would say all those other conditioned layers got peeled away.
Yes. Childhood, you are fully you. And then the world just distracts you in so many different ways and pulls you from that. But when you finally find your way back home to you, the power and magic and beauty and strength that resides within is just uncomparable to anything else.
Yeah, it really is. And it's the true secret healing
Yes.
to you.
So then, as you recognize that for yourself, walk us through you eventually having your own wellness simplified method and starting to bring others along in that healing journey.
Yeah, the more I did this, the more I realized that I need to get this out there because it wasn't out there for me.
Mhm.
I had to stumble upon
Yes.
each thing that I did, and it was based on me being pushed into it because of whatever hole I was trying to crawl out of. When I was dealing with the anaphylactic shock, I had seen a holistic nutritionist. And so I got involved with that. I did that for 10 years, really used a lot of classic Chinese medicine principles with the holistic nutrition and electromagnetic muscle testing, which is all what people would say very woo. I was open to anything that would help me at that
Yeah.
point, and I feel that's what happens when people are at rock bottom. So when it came to the mediumship and I realized that I could help people with that, I started doing that. Took the courses to work with that particular holistic doctor and get certified through his holistic nutrition practice. And then I was like, "Oh, I can take this and I can use my mediumship tools and my own tools of how I help people." And I created my own process. And then I realized I want to be a certified coach and I want to literally have all the certifications I need to add to this. And I did a lot of research. There's so many different coaching schools out there and realized that Deepak Chopra was my idol because he is the perfect combination between the science and the woo. And he worked around here where I live here in Massachusetts is where he got started. So I got trained with his school as a Chopra certified total well-being coach. And I was already leading meditation, so I became a meditation teacher as well as that. And then that led me to get national board certified for a national board certified health and wellness coach, going through the testing requirements to do that. And I just kept building on it. I am currently working through another certification with solution focused brief therapy because I completely connected with that particular person who teaches it years ago and bought his book and started using some of his work with my clients and realized, oh, this is just this one I need too. The learning is wonderful, but watching how I can use it with my clients and seeing them have the aha moments and start changing their life is the true reward.
You said something that's really stood out to me there when you talked about on your own healing journey and how you were searching for, you had this openness to try just about anything to help with your healing journey. And that's certainly been my experience too. There's a lot of options out there, but there's something so powerful when you find a partner like you who's tested some of those already and honed them into your own practice to help bring your clients a narrowed down list of options that you've tested and learned and had success from. So you've mentioned a few of those with meditation and holistic nutrition. Share a little bit more about the methods that you in particular bring into your practice.
I actually have a bunch of methods that work for
Yeah.
me, but I also have methods that I learned that I use quite
Yep.
for me, but I still have those tools in my
Yeah.
toolbox. I'll have clients come to me that really want to change their blood sugar levels or their cholesterol levels, and they really want to just work on the nutrition and the planning and the lifestyle adjustments. And so that's what we go into. We start there. We're like, okay, what are we eating? What are we doing? How do we create the goals and the action plans and all of those? And it's very regimented. But usually after a couple of sessions, they come in and they have major relationship issues and the reactions, and it's
Yep.
emotional, right? People are emotional eaters sometimes, or they stick to specific patterns based on that fight or flight, which is what I was doing too. And then those other tools come out. Those other tools like meditation or automatic writing or finding out that you take a walk every day in nature without your headphones in, or certain things that really bring you at peace. For me, it started with dancing, right? For somebody else, it could be a whole different thing. And my approach is very individualized. I always tap into what is my client's superpower? What lights them up? What feels good? And then, okay, let's plan around that. So my whole approach is client led, and I have this array of tools I can offer, and you pick and choose what works for
I
you.
love the playing off of the superpower. Don't know if everybody always knows what theirs is. Do you have a way to try to get at that first? Is that through conversation, hobbies? How can one start to hone in on what their superpower is?
I have multiple ways to do
Yeah.
that. I work with people on purpose. There's a whole purpose workbook that I'll work with people on that I originally was rooted in teachings from the Chopra coaching that I did. It really connects you to those things that you admire in other people. They're always things that you want for yourself. And maybe they're things you're already doing, or maybe they're things that you want to get to. And then you realize what is the things about you that makes you that way. It's also looking at what you've been through, the things that you've gone through. I realized based on all the things that I had gone through, my superpower was resilience. I had all this strength where I could deal with whatever was thrown at me. Maybe it would compound into something else because I wasn't working through the emotional part of it, but my resilience was my superpower. And really looking at, okay, what did you do to get through that? And the solution focused brief therapy model really works on looking at what that is about people. What do you find that you love to do? What do you find comes really easy for you to do? And what lights you up? And a lot of times it takes a little bit for people to figure that out. But that's what I'm here for. Let's have the conversation. Let me ask you a bunch of questions. Let's expand on that. Okay, why is that important? And it's really coming back to like your core values and beliefs and how that assimilates with what you do to figure out what your superpower is.
I always say I'm about 10 years into my healing journey of fully taking control and stop being a victim, just accepting what my past is and recognizing that there's lessons in that and how can I take all of that and make it my strength. It's so funny because a few years ago, my grandmother found a reference letter from a teacher of mine from when I was a little kid. Here I am thinking I'd gone through all these twists and turns and grew and developed so much. But really, the description in that letter from that teacher described me to a T of who I was trying to be, like in my strongest version. It really is just getting back to, and it's stripping away all of the BS that had piled up on top of that little kid, but really just getting
Yeah.
back to who in my core I truly am.
Exactly. Peeling back all those layers that have been built like a cocoon on you, right? Coming out as the butterfly.
Yes, exactly.
And it's not because those layers are transforming you.
Right,
It's really you're shedding them.
right. I am just fascinated with mediumship. I am obsessed. I sat with my grandfather when he passed away a few years ago. It was just one of the most, what's Glennon Doyle's word, brutal. I heard Anne Lamott once said that it's like birthing your own soul. And that's what the experience that I witnessed felt like. It was such an honor to be there. And ever since, just so fascinated with energy and what happens to us after we pass away and past lives and with that what's some of the beliefs out there with that and your mediumship. Are there any lessons that are coming through from the other side from that experience that you've had?
It's a constant thing.
Yeah.
And for me, the realization that no matter what we do in this life, when we go from this life to back to our soul self, back to our energy, which is what I see, right? The spirit is like back in its true form. We chose to come to this earth and deal with what we dealt with. And what connects me to that is, you know how people seem like they're an old soul?
Yes, of
Like they
course.
have so much wisdom from a young
Yep.
age because they've done this many
Yes.
times,
Of
right?
course.
They've chosen to go deal with maybe being murdered, or
Yes.
you're not aware of that when you're going through, but when you're in the other realm, it's okay. What do I want to learn now before I maybe go to the next realm or whatever realm is beyond that? And as a medium, I don't see what else is beyond that. Some people say they do. For me, I think it's just okay. I want to learn something else, but
Yep.
I don't want to do it here on earth.
Hey, Messies. Quick pause before we dive back in. If you're loving these conversations and want a little extra support on your own becoming journey, head over to meghandawson.com. You can sign up for my weekly email. It's like a little love note from the messy middle, filled with stories, tools, and truths to help you feel less alone. And if you're looking for personalized support, I've got a few spots open for one-to-one coaching. If that's been on your heart, let's talk. All right, back to the episode. If you think about yourself as choosing the lessons that you're being given, it's just so powerful. I talk a lot about going with the flow of life instead of fighting against it and not defining things as good or bad, but instead just accepting the ebbs and flows that are going to come your way and really trying hard to learn from them. And there's something that's so freeing in just accepting a life that is here to teach you something that stops you from feeling like everything is a struggle and something to suffer from, but instead something to learn from.
Yeah. It also goes back to the gratitude.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the first things I do with my clients is have a gratitude practice. Write it down every day. What are you grateful for? And it can be just words. It doesn't have to be a lot, but like three things: the tree outside and how beautiful it is with no leaves. The fact that it was raining today and I love the sound on the roof. It could be anything, but there's so much that we can be grateful for in this life that we forget about it. And I tell people my story, and a lot of times people are like, "Oh, I'm so sorry you had to go through that." And I'm like, "Don't be sorry. I needed these things to get where I am now. If those things didn't happen to me, where would I be? Who would I be?"
With that in mind, I'm a mom of teenagers And so thinking of them as well as folks that I coach, I think a lot about what I can teach people from my own experience versus how much they have to learn on their own journey, because there's going to be skills that they gain that no matter what I do, they're going to have to gain from their own life experience. And so
Mm.
I'm curious of you as a mother and you with your clients, how do you help give the people in your life the framework to be able to work from so they can be open to life giving them what it needs to for their individual journeys?
It all comes back to the stories, right? It comes back to that sharing your vulnerability and your own experiences, connecting with my teenagers and realizing that some of the things that I was doing was some of the things my parents did, and being like, "Oh, no, this is not how I wanna live because I remember how that felt." And then actually sharing it with them, being like, "I didn't realize I was doing this," and sharing what happens in your life, and this is how I had this revelation. I think people nobody likes to be told what to do,
Right.
and they don't necessarily wanna be told the science behind why do it.
Yes.
But if they can live an experience, even if it's not theirs, right? Which is why people love to read, which is why a lot of wisdom comes from those that read so
Yeah.
much because they're learning from other people's experiences.
Yeah. So
And then you
true.
adopt what resonates with you.
That's right. So just thinking of somebody listening right now who is maybe in a place of overwhelm, maybe a little bit of a skeptic on the types of woo things that we've talked about. What's one place to start to just try to overcome that overwhelmed feeling and point yourself in a healthier direction?
When you ask me that, I think about when I was dealing with massive anxiety and panic attacks, and I was on medication because I was afraid I was going to die from eating one thing, what it
Yeah.
was. And if I had somebody to tell me what to do then, instead of trying to figure it out on my own or just being told, take the medication and feeling numb, like I wasn't even existing because of the medication. Um, this is what I would tell people. Occupy your brain with the what ifs. And if that's not working, find another thing to occupy your brain with. So at first for me, when I got into that craziness, there was like a game on my phone I played. The music didn't work. I'd put on music and I'd try to sing along with the music, or I'd try to read and my brain would just still go. And so I had to find something that really occupied my brain. The dancing did that. Finding something that like my body and my brain and there's nothing else that can come in so that I can be like, okay, I'm at peace right now.
Yep.
And then once you get to that, like moving on to stopping, pausing, breathing. Don't react. We're all famous for just reacting to everything as opposed to, let me think about this before I go.
Yes.
And that's what ends up happening. It's really like, again, coming back to you. And so many of us are living outside of ourselves. We're not inside our heart, inside our bodies. We're living outside for what's coming next or what happened a week ago. What about right now? Being present, taking a breath, being here, seeing the beauty in what's here now.
Beautiful. Oh, that felt so good. That was a good pause for me as well. And it's just so simple, yet so much power in just pausing, taking a breath, and acknowledging the moment that we're in.
Mm. Yeah, I think that many of us are just so busy,
Yep. S-
we forget to enjoy it.
So, as you shifted on your own journey, what were some of the kind of beliefs or habits that you had to shed as you kind of shifted into embracing more of the spiritual path?
A lot of it was I didn't have to prove my worth to anybody ever. And that's a constant process because the brain likes to play tricks on us. It's a beautiful, awful, crazy thing, the brain. But actually understanding that and questioning the thoughts and being like, yep, I heard you, but I don't know if I agree with that one. The thoughts that come through your brain. And then realizing that I can take a step back and breathe. I can start looking at what's my part in this. A lot of people feel like it's all everybody else's fault. I dealt with sexual harassment for years. What's my part in it? Why did I stay there for so long? Why did I not know that it wasn't okay? And I can go back and, oh, I can see some of this kind of in where I grew up. Oh, I can see that I didn't really understand that it wasn't what I had to do being a woman in a male dominated type of environment. And it wasn't until I started hearing stories from others, other experiences that this isn't okay, like the Me Too movement and things like that, that I was like, oh, wait a minute. So I shouldn't have been putting up with that. So then little of that is my own fault. And a lot of people don't want to go there, right? It's really hard to go there. Finding your own involvement in everything that happens in your life. There's some really bad stuff that happens. But if you take responsibility for your own healing, I heard this yogi say this once, and I go back to it so many times. He says, you are not responsible for the wound, but you are responsible for the
Yeah,
healing.
that is a poignant way to sum that up. I struggle with language sometimes with that and not having the intention of victim blaming
Mm.
because you're so right that it's not the wound that you had any responsibility in. However, you're stuck with that wound and you can keep letting it fester and hurt you, or you can step in and own your own healing. And to me, I think it's our job to regulate ourselves and get to our best version of ourselves. And that's going to require some very dedicated healing for those of us with such deep wounds.
Yeah, that description that you just gave was basically my journey.
Yeah.
Every diagnosis, everything, it was everybody else's fault or the world's fault. That victimhood that you end up living
Yeah.
in. It's not until you really just say, why am I sitting in this?
Another thing that resonates between our stories is how much you talk about the power you found in telling your truths. And
Mm.
what I hear in so many stories of people that have had courageous moments where they're saying, enough, I'm going to just own my whole story. I'm going to put it out there. To me, there's so much we all learn from each other, and that collectively makes us stronger. And so for me, it's another part of, I believe, our responsibility to one another to no longer hide in the shadows behind all of these taboo topics because there's so many of our stories. And if we can own them, we release their hold over us.
Yeah, we release the hold over us and we give somebody else an opportunity. We give somebody else the knowledge that we gained,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
If like the Me Too movement never happened and these women didn't come out and it didn't become a really big thing in the news, I wouldn't have known anything.
Yes, exactly.
So their suffering and their sharing helped me
Yes.
work through one of my traumas. I think that's the same for
Yep.
everything. People dealing with medical issues, people dealing with emotional issues. If we all share, we can all learn from each other.
Yes, we can learn from each other. We can demand better of ourselves and of our fellow humans. And it empowers us with knowledge
Mm.
and doesn't keep us settling for small lives that are just full of pain and suffering. Instead, you realize that you can actually drive yourself to a much enlightened life that's so full and abundant by addressing the things that we were all taught not to talk about.
Yeah. Just remember that you are meant for so much more.
Yes. Oh, that's so beautiful. So, one of my struggles is diet. I have polycystic ovary syndrome. I have Graves' disease. I had my thyroid removed last year. I am pre diabetic. I just have so many body type things that make me have a little bit of a discomfort with food. And I'm so curious of your approach to nutrition and how that became part of your healing journey.
But that was a big shift for me, really, because I was so afraid to eat things.
Okay.
But it wasn't the full approach. So the mind body spirit connection, what you put into your body, no matter how clean you eat, it's the first thing you need to do, of course. The less processed foods you eat, the better. The less sugars you eat, the better. There's a process to nutrition. And It's more going back to if you were living off the land, how would you eating whole foods, like cooking whole foods, using those things, that is super important. And I forced myself into that based on all the things I was allergic to. Like I couldn't eat out, I couldn't eat processed foods because one of my allergies would be in it that
Yep.
way. And so even though I was doing that, I was dancing, I was going to the gym, I was working with a personal trainer, I looked the epitome of healthy. But I was dealing with the lupus. I was dealing with other autoimmune conditions. I had celiac disease. I had multiple other autoimmune conditions all piling on top of each other. And it wasn't until I adjusted my mindset and did the healing work on the emotional, spiritual connection. Like it's those things that are in us that cause autoimmune disease. There's so many research studies out there. I wish I could pop some of the doctors off the top of my brain right now. But there are so many that are it's prevalent in women
Yes.
specifically women 30 and over. It gets even more prevalent when they get into their 40s that they get autoimmune conditions. And it does happen to men, but it's definitely higher in women. And it's all the stresses. It's all those layers that make the cocoon. It's all the things we suppress. It's not using our voice. It's not living our authentic life. It's going forth in the expectations of others. All of those things you suppress dysregulate your body. They say that I will have lupus for all of my life because I was diagnosed with it. I say that's bull because I haven't taken a medication since 2018.
That's incredible.
But I listen to my body. If my joints start bothering me, I know, oh, what are you not dealing with right now? What did you eat that totally threw your body off? Did you overdo it yesterday? Did you have a confrontation that you're not talking about that's really bothering you? Right? And as soon as I process those things, it goes away.
When you work with clients on their nutrition, is it kind of individual specific?
It is. When I work with people, I want to take you out of inflammation. The first thing we do is more of an anti-inflammatory diet. And there's a couple of different versions of those out there, but immediately remove gluten, remove dairy, remove nuts, remove vinegars, remove the things that are highly inflammatory so that your body stops reacting to itself because it's dealing with the inflammation all the time. How can it deal with everything else? Your body is an amazing machine. But if you think about any machine that's running and you keep throwing wrenches into the gears and into the bearings, here's the engineering in me coming out, nothing's going to run
Right.
right. And it's the same thing with your body. So you really have to be like, okay, what am I actually putting in my body that is contributing to my problem? And what will help me at least find the good baseline? And then I can slowly add things back in to see how my body reacts and really listening to that. Because some people, everybody says blueberries are great for you. Some people they eat blueberries and it doesn't sit well with their body. So it's an individual approach. Our DNA is different than anybody else. How you heal and how you eat is going to be different than anybody else.
Are there any other modalities that we haven't touched on that you like to use in your practice?
Oh, there's probably so many.
Yeah.
Like we go into shadow, we go into purpose, we go into reactive emotions and really working through those things. There's so many different ways to approach healing. And that's why I say it's so individualized, which is why I constantly want to learn because we're constantly evolving. There's constantly new studies. How else can I help somebody else? I will offer up all of my tools based on that person and let them pick and choose what works for them. Some people are really into the woo, right? They want to really be able to connect. Teach me how to connect with my spirit guides. Teach me how to meditate really well. Teach me how to do, and great. And there's other people who don't even want to go there, but they still heal
Yes.
because they have tools that can help them in a different way.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was curious of kind of skeptics of woo. Think some people shy away from woo skeptics, but I, like you, find that it's just there's still a desire for healing. You might just need a little bit more research backed science to the methods that you're bringing forth just to start showing some progress. So I'm curious of your approach with woo skeptics, and do you have just a different starting point that you use?
Yeah, I put forth the science that confirms
Right?
the woo.
Yes.
There is so much science, and I think it's why I'm so connected to, like, the Deepak Chopra
Yeah.
type of work. There's so much science connected with the spirituality aspect, the energy aspect. All of those things that people say is woo, there is science that backs how good it is and why.
Yes. Yeah. So true. I have a few rapid questions for you. This is a new segment, Rapid Realness. Just think of it as a vibe check meets truth serum, no overthinking, just gut level honesty. One food that feels like medicine for you.
Pineapple, anti-inflammatory,
What's a woo tool you love that surprised even you?
meditation,
First thing that you do when you feel overwhelmed.
step away from all electronics and breathe.
Essential oil you would take with you to a deserted island.
None.
Nah,
I'm not an essential oil
all right.
person.
Best advice you've ever ignored and glad that you did.
Living by the rules of any type of modality.
That is bringing us close to our final question. But before I get there, Crystal, share with our listeners how they can connect with you and your work.
So you can find me under Crystal Moon Holistic Healing. My website is www.crystalmoonholistichealing.com. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. You can also find me under my name, Crystal Robinson.
I had so much fun talking with you today. I'm so glad we connected, Crystal. I just had one final question. Right now, so many people are feeling like they're in their own rock bottom. Looking back at your own messiest moments in your becoming, what advice do you wish would have found you in that moment?
You are way more capable and strong than you think you
Uh,
are.
Thank you so much, Crystal. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Well, thank you so much, Megan. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Before we wrap today, I want to invite you to be part of the Becoming is Messy community. Subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. And if there's anything that resonates with you, please leave a review. Your feedback means the world to me, and it helps other people find this community. Follow me on social media. I'd love to hear your ideas for future topics, your questions, and stories from your own messy moments. And if you're feeling inspired, check out the Becoming is Messy shop, where you can grab a mug, a t-shirt, or something else that reminds you to embrace your messy magic every single day. A huge thank you to the incredible Wolves and Sheep for providing the music for Becoming is Messy. Check them out on your favorite music streaming platform. As we close out today's episode, remember this: messy is just another word for growing. So keep showing up, keep laughing, and keep making beautifully awkward progress. Until next time, stay messy, my friends.